Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. Excuse me. So today, we're trying something new today. We're going to be doing uh, some gaming news, and the major thing we're going to be going over today is going to be the major topic we're covering today is the downfall of Ubisoft. So I thought it would be a good idea to start off with this Ubisoft meme here. Gaming news, and the major thing we're going to be going over downfall of Ubisoft. Okay, I can't listen to myself in my head. So we got Ubisoft. Morning, Sunshine, coming over here to milk the Assassin's Creed game to death with all these different versions, and I thought this would be a good starting point to show where a lot of this stuff comes from, and this is probably a start of a lot of their own bad decisions. But we'll get to that later. And in the meantime, oh, I lost my place. In the meantime, we've got some other things to cover. As you can see there, I've got a bunch of tabs here. Trying to figure out where to start, really. In the meantime, we've got some other things to cover. Excuse me. All right, so I figure we start off with the Final Fantasy VII remake, the third part that's coming out here. I've got a few tabs on that. Let's start here in the middle where it's just talking about just the remake. And this was written, or came out, this particular article came out yesterday. And it says, in the remake in Final Fantasy VII, the remake in Final Fantasy VII Remake refers to more than just the technical aspects of the original 1997 game being remade, which, by the way, is my favorite version of this game, is the original from the 90s. That could just be that because I'm old, and I prefer the original versions of a lot of different content, because a lot of the times the remakes end up being some kind of slop. But I can't judge because I have yet to play the remake, because I was expecting when it came out that it would just be like the full game remade all in one shot. But apparently the people that remade the game thought better of it. Anyway, the remaking of Fate is a core concept of the title that adds additional layers to its story. Remake's sequel, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, continues that trend by exploring a world reborn by machinations of the game's antagonist Sephiroth. As such, it stands to reason that the final game in the trilogy will use a similar naming convention that ties into the reimagining meta-narrative. And according to that game's director, Naoki Hamaguchi, the third and final installment's title has been decided by the trilogy's creator-director Tetsuya Nomura. I remember an interview I did at Paris Game Week about how we narrowed it down to two names, says Hamaguchi. It was up to Mr. Nomura to decide which it is. And yes, after returning from Paris Game Week, he did choose one. So I can say that the title has been locked. and we'll read this article and then we'll watch this video. Hamaguchi is in New York City to promote the release of Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade on the Nintendo Switch 2, giving us the opportunity to speak with him about the franchise. Regarding the game's performance on the device, which has been received positively by even the most diehard of pixel peepers, well, that's a term I've not actually ever heard before. Hamaguchi says that while it was relatively smooth getting the game running on the hardware, the team spent a lot of time trying to achieve a stable frame rate. I would imagine it would be because, as I recall, when the first game came out, it was pretty graphics heavy, and I thought at the time, without some kind of major transforming of how the game ran, it really wouldn't run on anything less than a PlayStation or an Xbox. I do kind of still miss the whole exclusives to certain consoles, and this was one of them back in the 90s. This was exclusively on PlayStation, and I think making things cross-platform kind of ruins the whole novelty of getting one console over another. The director also notes that it is also a challenge the team is dealing with on the Switch 2 port of Rebirth, though Hamaguchi confirms the studio has managed to get the sequel up and running on the device. I can't imagine that would have been actually really all that easy, because the Switch 2 is still technically a handheld and not a full-on console. While we have gotten Rebirth to function on the Switch 2, we still need to make sure that frame rates are stable. Our engineers are trying to fine-tune that and make sure we are optimizing properly, says Hamaguchi. The first two parts of the trilogy were built using Unreal Engine 4, which has been surpassed by the release of UE5 in 2021. While Hamaguchi previously states the team has been considering transferring development of the final title over to the more modern engine, he confirms with us that they are sticking with UE4 for the game. While we've been using Unreal Engine 4, we've made a lot of modifications to fit our needs, says Hamaguchi. It's more beneficial to have something we're already familiar with and have customized to fit our needs. Yeah, I would agree. You really ought to, if you're making a trilogy, you really should try to make all the games on the same engine, so that way everything at least looks relatively the same. Because you don't want two games on 4 and then the third one on 5 and the fifth one being like graphically better. It could ruin people's outlook on the first two. And like he said, it's better to stick to a platform you know than switching to the new version and having the platform be completely different and stuff you're not necessarily used to. And that would actually also speed up production, keeping it on Unreal 4 versus moving to 5. Another aspect of modern game development that has been widely discussed is generative AI. In a previous interview, Hamaguchi stated that Square Enix didn't have any set down rules regarding the technology. However, in between that interview being conducted and published, Square Enix released a financial report that did lay out some of the ways it planned to utilize the technology. Partnering with the Matsuo Laboratory at the University of Tokyo with the goal of using Gen AI to automate 70% of QA and debugging tasks in game development by the end of 2027. In my day job, AI is something that I do have to use periodically from time to time, and I don't use it for the main tasks. I do, however, use it in checking my codes and stuff like that, rather than having to run it through a program that'll test run it, and then trying to read through all the code and trying to find where exactly that error is, when you can put it into something like Grok and have it and say, hey, check this for continuity errors or bugs. It'll run it through, it'll look at everything, and it'll tell you, hey, there's an error here with this specific line, or it'll say no errors, go ahead and test run, essentially. And so that would cut down on a lot of tasks, having people read over a bunch of code. Yes, games are wont to have is mountains and mountains of code and assets to read over and look over. So that makes sense to use it in that particular spot. I am not a fan necessarily of running the whole game through AI, but if you're smaller and you need like specific specialized tasks, you can fill in those gaps, and I personally wouldn't have a problem with it. Or to do like your initial first round quality checks, also not a problem. If AI is not generating a majority of the game, I personally have no issue. My stance hasn't changed depending on AI to produce something or to create something, says Hamaguchi. I don't rely on AI to come up with ideas and things like that. That's what I was saying. You don't use AI for that. That said, AI is a tool that I and other colleagues would utilize so that our tasks would become much smoother, or some of the menial tasks are taken care of by AI, like your initial QA checks or debugging your code. I think that becoming more and more necessary. I think it's becoming more and more necessary. I think the purpose of utilizing these tools is so that the creators will have a better environment so that they can work more efficiently and they can explore more creative options. Hamaguchi proceeds to address the automation of the QA process with generative AI. Some of the quality control testing requires very menial tasks, like collision check. Says Hamaguchi, it's a tedious task that's very repetitive. And by automating that using AI, we reduce the stress on the human that is required to check on it, and it would save their retinas. Holy smokes, having to stare at the same section repeatedly, nonstop, that would burn your eyeballs out. It would just flag an alert, and then the developers would get that information, so we're hoping that that would lower the bandwidth that is required of our people. Well, you would lower the stress on your people, but you're going to exponentially expand the literal bandwidth on your computers and your data sets. 2025 marked the 10-year anniversary since the start of development on this trilogy of titles. Ahead of the series' conclusion, we asked Hamaguchi whether the team is eager to move on or is savoring its final months, potentially years, with Final Fantasy VII. I mean, when you've been on a project as long as they have for this specific trilogy of titles, which I personally still think should have just been one massive game like the original, but that's just me being old, and that way they can't charge me 3 times for the same game. I'm also a cheap bastard, apparently. That's a good question, and also a very difficult question to answer, says Hamaguchi. We want to see it through, and we want to meet, if not surpass, fan expectations with the final installment. With a line like that, I'm really hoping, for those of you that actually played the remake, that this particular installment is not absolute trash, considering all the things that we've been getting from other studios. But it would be a lie to say that I haven't thought, oh no, there's still more I have to get through, especially when transitioning from the first to second game. But now that we are seeing the conclusion of the trilogy, there is no wavering. We are focused and we want to see it through. Alright, so I really hope that this game actually doesn't turn about. Alright, let's check out this video and see what it says.
At the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake, Square Enix made it perfectly clear that whatever lay in store for our band of adventurers would surely be significantly different from the original game. Now that we finally have our hands on the second installment in the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, we can confirm that there are numerous differences between it and the 1997 classic. We cover all the biggest changes made to the original Final Fantasy.
So here's a bit of a take, my personal, as far as the characters go. Cid was always my favorite non-main story character, honestly.
Fantasy VII Rebirth. We'll start with the least spoiler-filled changes before giving you a big bolded warning and digging into the juicy stuff.
Okay, so for those of you that care, there is going to be spoilers. So if you don't want spoilers, I suggest you skip probably the next 10, 11 minutes or so. Because there's, like I said, like they told you in the video, there is going to be spoilers here.
Like previous Final Fantasy VII entries, materia, orbs of solidified lifestream that grant the wielder unique powers, come in 5 different forms. Green materia is most common and offers the user both offensive and defensive spells. Yellow materia contains additional battle commands, purple provides stat boosts, blue augments whatever materia it is attached to, and red grants the user the...
My favorite blue materia was Quadcast. Or was that purple? Can't remember, it's been a long time. But I always liked, as far as like my materia settings, I always liked setting up the Knights of Round Summon with like the Quadcast materia, and then have somebody else cast Mimic. And so that way you basically cast the same summon at least 5 or 6 times. And it was really helpful when fighting the roaming androids.
The ability to summon gods and creatures that can help turn the tide of battle. However, while all this seems familiar, Rebirth adds a few new materia to the mix. To give a few examples, Fire and Ice and Lightning and Wind materia are new additions that give the user
Wait, Fire and Ice are new additions?
2 spells while using only 1 materia slot. Disempowerment and Enervate.
That wasn't these are 2 separate materia spots, but they're combined. So you're still using 2 materia spots. This is like a weapon setting and not specific, unless they're actually allowing you to actually put 2 materias of the same color into that same spot. Okay, so that actually, now that I'm actually like paying attention, it does look like that's the case. So Fire and Ice, so you're allowed to put 2 in the same spot. Okay, my fault. I spoke ahead of time. That is completely my fault.
Slot. Disempowerment and Enervation both focus on debuffs, with Disempowerment casting D-Brave, attack down.
Okay, so those are new materia to me altogether. This empowerment materia, I've never heard of it.
And D-Faith, defense down, while Enervation casts D-Protect and D-Shell. In contrast, Fortification and Empowerment provide your team with Bravery and Faith, as well as Protect and Shell. Additional new materia includes Subversion, Synergy, Dark Side, Autocast, Spare Change.
Wait, they're just now putting in like the some of these other materials? Because I'm pretty sure I remember Autocast, unless I'm thinking of a different Final Fantasy game. Let me double check real quick. Let me see. Okay, let's Autocast. Okay, so I guess it is only in the new one. Maybe looks like I'm out of my head. Okay, my mistake. It just sounded really familiar.
Limit Siphon, Magic Pot, Bahamut Arisen, and more. Suffice it to say, there are a lot
Another
of
new
combinations
version
to
of
experiment
Bahamut?
with. Synergy abilities are a new feature that see your party members come together to dish out powerful attacks or tide-changing support abilities. There are pretty impressive...
My mistake. It just sounded really familiar.
Limit Siphon, Magic Pot, Bahamut Arisen, and more. Suffice it to say, there are a lot of combinations to experiment with. Synergy abilities are...
I appreciate the follow, Official Gambling Academy. Nice to have you here.
Number of these, as each character has 3 unique abilities they can perform with set party members. Cloud, for example, can use the abilities Ranged Blade, Melee Blade, and Counterfire.
I still miss when you just had all 4 parties on there at the same time. But then again, I still prefer the old school turn-based system. I don't necessarily like the whole one-on-one swap out your characters as you want situation. But that's just me. That's my personal preference.
While Counterfire can be used solo, ranged blade couples with either Red 13 or Barret, while melee blade requires either Tifa, Aerith, Yuffie, or Cait Sith to use. However, don't think you can use every synergy ability in the game from the very start. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth introduces a new system that is extremely reminiscent of Final Fantasy X Sphere Grid called Folios. Folios
no
allow
thanks.
players to tailor their
would
character's
you-
combat style by cashing in
Why would you put in other elements of different Final Fantasy games into what's supposed to be a remake of Final Fantasy VII? This is part of what the issue that I personally have with this game being called a remake when it's not clearly not just a remake. I don't like it being called. I don't like games being called a remake if they're not like a true to the source remake.
SP skill points to unlock new moves, stat buffs, and of course, synergy abilities. Be warned that it's a pretty tall order to unlock every ability on a character's folio, so we encourage you to look ahead and establish your various characters' playstyles early to make things easier.
Why do they gotta
This can
make this
also be
game
reset
even more
at any Magdata
complicated than it
books
was
or various
originally?
folio kiosks throughout the world.
I hate that.
In addition, characters' weapons now have unique abilities as well. Tifa, for example, can gain Dive Kick, Reverse Gale, Star Shower, Chi Trap, Unfettered Fury, and True Strike from Leather Gloves, Sylph Gloves, Dragon Claws, Tiger Fangs, Crystal Gloves, and Yarn Griper, respectively. By using a particular weapon for a long time, you can eventually level it up, allowing you to use its special ability regardless of whether or not that weapon is equipped. Unless you're playing on the game's lowest, most forgiving difficulty, assessing your enemies and paying attention to their weaknesses is vital. Whereas it was fairly easy to level grind and brute strength your way through Final Fantasy VII, Rebirth doesn't let it slide. I recommend at least one per...
I don't remember like trying to brute strength your way through the game being all that particularly easy unless you like went and you overpowered yourself for specific bosses. But that's just me, and like I said, it's been a really long time since I have actually played that game. Trying to brute strength your way through the game being all that particularly easy unless you overpowered yourself for a specific
person in your party carrying an assess materia and using it whenever a certain enemy is giving you a hard time. Thankfully, once you scan a certain type of enemy, you never have to do it again, which keeps the whole process from feeling annoying. While it's no secret that the 97 did have a relationship gauge of sorts hidden away within its code, it's a lot more explicit in Rebirth.
Yeah, it was hidden away in its code, but it wasn't exactly something you could actually do anything with. Like you couldn't utilize it because they, or at least not here in the United States, it wasn't a aspect of the game that they really allowed. In fact, probably they killed off one of the people that you could probably even do that with before the game was really even half over, especially if you sped your way through it. Aerith got killed really early.
In Rebirth, your relationship status with each character is indicated by a small icon located above their head that you can view at any time by pressing L1. Easy ways you can improve your relationships include completing a party member's respective side quests, which are indicated by their portrait shown next to the quest in the game's main menu, and by executing a synergy.
That's a feature that a lot of games seem to be adding now with these NPC side quests. Outer Worlds has it, and several other games have it as well.
Ability for the first time together. Additionally, many of Cloud's words and actions will elicit some kind of reaction from your party members, and there will even be times when he is put in a position where he will have to side with one character over another, such as when the thrill-seeking Barret and motion sickness-prone Yuffie disagree on a certain method of transportation. While you won't be able to upset a character to the point of leaving, having a good relationship does make for better conversation and better dates. Chocobos are handled quite a bit differently in Rebirth, pun intended. Whereas Final Fantasy VII required Cloud to equip the Attract Chocobo materia, run up and down Chocobo tracks until one appeared in battle, and toss greens at the bird until all other enemies were defeated and it joined your ranks, Rebirth tasks you with completing a...
And that wasn't the only part of it either. You actually had to ride that thing to the Chocobo farm before you could actually keep it.
materia, run up and down Chocobo tracks until
But that was part of the thing that I actually kind of liked. It was like a almost Pokemon like, really, when you were like searching for Pokemon in the tall grass. Rather than tall grass, you had to run up and down on these tracks on the world map and hope you actually had a Chocobo encounter. So I actually kind of preferred that.
Small stealth puzzle. Each region of the game has a specific named chocobo with a unique ability that you must sneak up on and catch. To do so, you'll have to duck behind minecarts, avoid the wandering eyes of its chocobo companions, and use rocks to hit levers and cause distractions. It's a fun spin on an old system, and don't worry, you'll still get the chance to race all the ones you find over at the Gold Saucer.
And that was another thing that I liked about, was like how you had to go about getting the gold chocobo, and what the gold chocobo is actually used for. And once you actually got the gold chocobo, you actually did not need any of the other vehicles that you received in the game. In fact, the gold chocobo is the only way that you could actually get the Knights of Round materia in the world map, because it's on a cave, or it's in a mountain cave on a small island. That's you would need both the ship, the airship, before it could take off, and the submarine. I think it was a submarine. It's been a really long time since I played, but you needed the deep water vehicle and the shallow water vehicle essentially at the same time in order to get it, which means it was impossible without the gold chocobo, is the punchline to that.
This Final Fantasy VII Remake made a once 7-hour portion of the original game take closer to 40 hours to complete. Rebirth adds a lot of content in its effort to turn the classic title into a modern open-world RPG. Naturally, a lot of this comes from side quests, some of which inject lighthearted humor into the game, while others dig deep into your party members' backstories and emotions.
I will say that's kind of cool. You can actually, like in situations where there's like pseudo cutscenes, and you look at the weapons, you can actually see the materia embedded in the weapons in some cases, which I think is actually kind of a cool aspect to it.
Beyond side quests, Rebirth also adds a lot of exploration elements. Each of the game's regions has several unique locations and sites to explore, such as large Remnawave towers that grant you area intel, life springs, excavation sites, summon sanctuaries, chocobos, Moogle homes, or mogstools, and more. Suffice it to say, you won't be lacking things to do. Lastly, Rebirth is absolutely packed.
See, that's the kind of stuff I want to see. I want to see like this old school type stuff in the game, honestly.
Back to the brim with mini games, so here's hoping you like them. From the latest card game craze, Queen's Blood, to a new version of Fort Condor that transforms your party members back to their previous polygonal self.
So that game, Queen's Blood, they brought that into this game, and I'm guessing, I think it was part of some of the other previous versions as well. But yeah, they've brought it back into the third thing, and that's actually going to be some of the topic of some of the other articles related to this Final Fantasy VII that I actually found. So we're going to go over those next after this.
Elves, you won't go long without being encouraged to play, race, and compete. Long gone are the days of wandering the woods in search of Yuffie Kisaragi, or slinking about through Shinra Manor in hopes of rousing Vincent.
See, now those were the cool things. They were optional characters that you didn't necessarily have to get, but they made it easier. Vincent is my second non-main character favorite. Like, when I say main character, I mean Cloud and Sephiroth and Tifa. Beyond those three, Sid and Vincent are my favorites. And I thought it was kind of cool that you had to like run around in this obscure forest in order to find Yuffie. And honestly, Vincent was, while you didn't have to get him, he was kind of hard. You'd have to actually deliberately not get him in order to not get him. Like, you couldn't help it. Like, he was part of the exploration.
And Valentine from his dark slumber. In Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, both characters are mandatory party members. While the way you recruit them is a bit different from the original, and we still can't actually play as Vincent, it seems like this is the only big change.
Why would you bring him into the game as an essential character, but you use him in your party. That seems dumb.
Rebirth makes
And a huge miss for this game, honestly.
to them. Okay, so this is the point where the big spoilers come into play. If you
Alright, this is the last chance, folks. Spoilers coming after this, so if you don't want to know, I suggest you turn off your video and navigate elsewhere. Otherwise, we're going to continue on and we're going to see the big spoilers. Fair warning.
If you haven't finished Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I highly recommend you do so before continuing. Like I said, big spoilers. I'll be going into characters' backstories, relationships, and the game's overall narrative, so proceed with caution. You've been warned.
I'm going through this because I still have no real intention of playing this game. Despite Final Fantasy VII, the original one, being my childhood favorite game.
For the most part, the cast members of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth are nearly identical to their 97 counterparts, albeit with more pixels. However, there is one notable exception. Cid
Yeah, there is already one noticeable exception. Aerith is still alive. And she died in the original one, so...
Highwind. While we might still get the chance to pop by Rocket Town in the remake trilogy's final installment, Rocket Town, Shira, and Cid's entire backstory are noticeably absent from
Why would you skip that? He was a cool-ass character. Why would you skip that guy's backstory, but still make him, like, what seems to be a mandatory character, but you can't play in the town, which was one of the things you kind of had to do as part of the main story. Going to Rocket Town was part of the story.
Rebirth. Instead, Cid is first encountered by the team when they set up a smoke signal in hopes that a pilot will find them. Naturally, Cid is the pilot, and acts more as a method of fast travel rather than a true party member this time around. Compared to 97 Cid, Rebirth Cid has more of a Han Solo-esque personality. He confesses that he does the occasional job for Shinra if the money is right, and seems to be primarily driven by the desire for personal freedom. Additionally, Cid reveals that he knew Aerith's mother, which becomes the reason he is so eager to help Aerith.
That is not a thing that's in 7. Honestly, it never comes up, it's never mentioned, it's not a thing. So they're adding dimension that wasn't there originally. So much for a remake, more like a retelling.
Than the rest of the team. Considering the controversy surrounding Cid's original backstory, which portrayed Cid as extremely verbally abusive, it makes sense that Square Enix is reevaluating his introduction. If you played Remake, this statement might seem a bit silly, as the existence of parallel timelines was all but confirmed during the game's finale. That said, it's nice to have actual confirmation, and it's finally given...
Oh, look at that. Time travel and timelines is the ultimate killer of any and all things related to media and storytelling.
To us in Rebirth. In the game's final chapters, we discover that Aerith is completely aware of several alternate universes, as well as the existence of a prime universe that follows the events of Final Fantasy VII. In every universe that is not following Fate's design, an enormous rift appears in the sky, as is the case with the Dimension.
What in... this is like Kingdom Hearts. I hate this. This might as well call this Final Fantasy VII Kingdom Hearts. It's nonsense and I don't like it already.
Biggs and Zack exist in. This becomes interesting and concerning when you consider the game ends with Cloud essentially existing between two dimensions simultaneously, as he is still wholly perceived by his teammates in the Prime Dimension, but is also the sole party member able to see and interact with a version of Aerith who lived. While everyone else grieves Aerith and looks up at the clear sky, Cloud still sees his companion as well as a growing rift above. In the original Final Fantasy VII, there were quite a few things about Cloud and Tifa's relationship that felt a bit off. It was never quite clear, for example, why the pair didn't sit down and discuss what happened to them in Nibelheim or in the years following. Sure, we can assume that Tifa
But because he ran off to be a part of Soldier.
was taken aback by Cloud's claims, unsure of her own memories, and ultimately remained quiet to ensure her friend's psyche remained intact, but it certainly requires a lot of filling in the gaps from players. Thankfully, Rebirth makes things a lot more clear and interesting. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth kicks off with Cloud and Tifa being somewhat suspicious of each other. Cloud doesn't understand how Tifa could have survived being stabbed by Sephiroth, while Tifa doesn't understand how Cloud can vividly recount what happened in Nibelheim, as she doesn't recall him being there. While their relationship isn't completely...
Because he was there. He just wasn't a member of Soldier at the time. He was a foot soldier and he was...
painted by...
Well... he had some things going on with him.
Eric's trust, the seeds sown in the game's first act are reaped repeatedly throughout its story and nearly lead to Tifa's demise. Furthermore, the pair's uncertainty towards one another makes Aerith not confronting Cloud about Zack more reasonable as well. After watching Cloud struggle when confronted with information he doesn't remember or that contradicts his own thoughts, Tifa essentially becomes the buffer between Cloud and all this unsavory information. For example, when Cloud tells Tifa he suddenly remembers Zack drowning during the pair's final mission, Tifa tells Cloud to let her talk to Aerith about it, claiming that she's closer with her and can break it more gently. However, we as the players can tell she still doubts what Cloud is saying and knows Aerith will too. And speaking of Tifa, one of the biggest differences between Rebirth and the original is how much attention and care is given to her. While the martial arts master has always been a fan favorite character and one of the game's most important figures, Rebirth gives us the
I was not really a fan of hers, honestly.
chance to truly dive into her character. Throughout its chapters, we see her deep bond with Aerith, her concern over Cloud's deteriorating state, her grief, her confusion, and even her near death. While I'd argue Rebirth gives more love to just about every character, Tifa really gets some exceptional treatment in the series' latest entry. That covers it. The biggest changes to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, that and the fact that you can now date Red 13, or the combination
Why would you even be allowed to date any of them, let alone an animal? Like, why would that even be allowed?
of Kate, Sid, and Vincent if you really
Is that for the furries?
avoid getting close to any of your longer-term companions. While this certainly isn't an exhaustive list, other than the big twisty ending, the game sticks fairly close to the original narrative while expanding the interpersonal connections between these long-beloved characters. And that, my friends, is the sign of a
Yeah. That's going to be a no for me, but like I said, I prefer the originals, so... Like I said, I'll not be playing this one. I'm just reading over some of the chat here real quick. A lot of bots. Yeah, we're not doing bots. Okay, but alright, so that's that article. Alright. Bringing back Rebirth's best minigame. But it's going to be even better. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has plenty of minigames, as we just saw and read in the last article. None of them quite compare to Queen's Blood, which is not a game that I'm familiar with because it was not a thing in the original Final Fantasy VII, which is the only version of this game that I've actually played. Queen's Blood is one of those mini games that players can easily sink dozens of hours into, collecting cards and advancing their ranks as they defeat the game's many opponents in a match. Since Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's launch, Queen's Blood has garnered praise that only minigames like The Witcher 3 Gwent has received. That was enough. I played Witcher 3 and I never actually played Gwent. I found it to be incredibly boring, but that's me personally. Now, according to director Naoki Hamaguchi in a recent interview with Polygon, Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3 will bring back the acclaimed minigame and somehow make it even better. Queen's Blood is a turn-based collectible card game in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that plays out on a 3-row, 5-column board where each player builds a 15-card deck and places cards to claim space and earn points in each lane. Each card has power value and placement requirements, and players take turns placing cards to capture tiles, boost their own lanes, and disrupt their opponent. Winning lanes by having the higher total power adds those points to the player's score at the end of the match. And some cards also include special effects that buff their board or debuff their opponent. As players travel the world in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, beating other Queen's Blood players not only earns them new cards, but also raises their rank through a rather lengthy side quest, making it one of the most strategic and rewarding mini-games in gaming. As such, it's hard to believe that Part 3 could improve it, but according to Hamaguchi, it will. It's ultimately good news that Queen's Blood is returning in Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3, regardless of whether it's improving the minigame or not. However, its return was already confirmed back in August of 2024. It wasn't until recently that Hamaguchi mentioned it wouldn't be in the same game that players remember, but would instead be even better. Queen's Blood is very popular and beloved minigame, and I believe a lot of people are still wanting something like that, Hamaguchi said during the interview. I want to expand on Queen's Blood so that we are enhancing it and giving you a more powered up version of it when you see that third installment. Queen's Blood is still going to be available in the third installment, we just want to expand it. And I wonder, because like I said, I don't know anything about this minigame itself, so I wonder how they're going to improve it. Any mention of improvements being made to Queen's Blood is great news, but Hamaguchi neglected to state during the interview exactly how the team would expand on the minigame in Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3. Even so, there are several possible ways Queen's Blood could be taken to the next level in the third and final entry of the remake trilogy. Like new board layouts, better late game balance. And these are some of the things that they're suspecting that might be improved. Would be new board layouts or rule variants, stronger archetype support, better late game balance, world-based card acquisition, optional PvP or challenge modes, more narrative integration, rotating tournaments with modifiers. I think, like I said, having not played this game, the ones that seem to make the most sense to me and to add more of a collection aspect to the game would be the world-based card acquisition, where you can only acquire certain cards in certain towns, or fall off of boss monsters. One interesting twist that I think might be like there was an old chess game. It was a 3D chess game, and you would move your pieces next to each other, and anytime you used one of the chess pieces would attack another chess piece, they would physically strike the enemy's piece. And I wonder if that's not something that wouldn't happen in this game. Like the character that's on the card pop out, cast a spell or make an attack on the enemy's card. I think that would be an interesting aspect to it. But it's, like I said, it's just my random thoughts. While these improvements are purely speculative, based on current state of Queen's Blood in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, new board layouts or rule variants could prevent late-game matches from feeling predictable. While stronger archetype support would encourage experimentation instead of funneling players toward a handful of optimal strategies. Expanding how cards are earned through world exploration, bosses, or side content would also help Queen's Blood feel more naturally embedded in the world. And rotating tournaments or optional challenge modes could give dedicated players reasons to keep returning between major story beats. If Square Enix also finds ways to tie Queen's Blood more directly into character arcs or Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3 story, which I think would be a terrible idea, because why would you make a minigame part of the main story? The minigame could feel less like a side activity and more like a natural extension of the narrative. No, I think you should leave it as a tavern game and not make it part of the main story, because that, to me, feels like it would kill the flow of the game itself if you have to stop and play a side quest game periodically throughout the game. That's a terrible idea to me personally. Alright. Queen's Blood already stands out as one of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's most memorable surprises, which is why expanding it in Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3 feels right. I mean, yeah, no problems with expanding it, just don't make it part of the main story. That feels wrong. Rather than simply bringing the minigame back for nostalgia's sake, Hamaguchi comments suggest a version that builds on what worked while addressing the places where it could grow. If Part 3 delivers a better Queen's Blood experience overall, it could cement the card game as a defining pillar of the remake trilogy and one of the best minigames the series has ever produced. And they'll probably come out with some kind of trading card game, in the real world, or it'll be included in some version of remake of Kingdom Hearts, and that's just, it's just what's probably going to happen if it actually blows up like they suspect that it will. Excuse me. Alright, so this is more talking about the card game still as well. I'm just kind of glancing over this article, and it seems to just kind of cover what we've already talked about. So there's no really need to go over it again. So we can be done with this bit here. Okay. Alright, let me take a quick break. I'm going to grab some water, and then we'll get back to it. Hey, we're back. We're getting ready to get back into it. And the first bit of story that we're going to cover is going to be Rockstar. So, Rockstar North open and operational after fire crews respond to reported boiler room explosion. So, those of you that don't know, a while back, Rockstar North in Europe, specifically in Scotland, exploded. And now they are back up and running. Grand Theft Auto 6 developer Rockstar North was reportedly rocked by an explosion at its Edinburgh, Scotland headquarters this morning, back in January 19th. The incident was apparently tied to a malfunction in the studio's boiler room. According to Scotland's The Herald, the Scottish Fire and Rescue Services, the SFRS, was alerted to an emergency at Rockstar North after an alarm was raised at 5:02 a.m. local time. 7 emergency vehicles were dispatched, and firefighters worked to secure structural damage to the building. And I don't know why it would put quotes around structural damage as if to say that there was none or that there's might be some somewhere. To the building, after 3 hours, the SFRS deemed the area safe and left the building at around 9:21 a.m. No casualties were reported. A Rockstar representative speaking to GameIndustry.biz and other outlets suggested that the structural damage was minimal and confirmed that the studio is open and operational. Odd place for quotes again. The representative also stated that the incident was caused by a malfunction in one of the heating boilers. Why are the quotes? It's almost like that's not actually what's happened. But it just seems weird. Many thanks to those that reached out with concern, and also to the police and the fire crews who were on scene quickly to assess the situation. Please know that everyone is well, and our studio remains open and operational, said Rockstar's spokesperson. Rockstar North is currently working on Grand Theft Auto 6, set to release on November 19th, after years of anticipation and a couple of delays, while legions of fans await the game's launch with bated breath. At this point, I'm just kind of over it because they overhyped it for so long, and I'll bet you that before it gets anywhere near November, they're going to push the date again. I would be willing to bet. We're just happy that none of Rockstar's employees appear to have been harmed by what could have been a much more dangerous situation. I agree. It's good that, that nothing happened to anybody and that they're back up and running and able to work back on their games. So, I mean, good news for those of you that are huge fans of Rockstar and more specifically Grand Theft Auto 6 and waiting for that one. Okay, take a breath here. So these are all things that, okay. All right, I'm looking for a specific tab. Okay, so we're going to start here with specifically Prince of Persia and then move into the overall topic of Ubisoft. Prince of Persia has been canceled. I saw... let me check my bookmarks again. All right, so these are some of the funnier things that I saw about it. Specifically, this one here on X about Prince of Persia. There's an insider tell-all, but it looks like the bullet points were 90% of the game was developed by Ubisoft in India. The project was not up to snuff. Last minute, in order to make its deadline, it was transferred to Montreal, Canada, to fix any of the issues that were going on. The game was deemed unfixable, and it was therefore canceled, is the TLDR of the Prince of Persia project, it seems, at least according to this person on X. Alright, so let's start with this article here from IGN. It says Ubisoft cancels 6 projects in total, including Prince of Persia Sands of Time Remake, closes 2 studios, and confirms further layoffs in major company restructure. So this article here will probably likely dovetail into the 2 topics that we're going to be going over here shortly. One being specifically the Prince of Persia cancellation, and then the overall what happened to Ubisoft overall. Okay. Trying to come up with a good intro for this, but I really can't think of anything. I need an intro. Hello, welcome Internet. Today we're going to be covering the cancellation of Prince of Persia Sands of Time Remake as part of the issues stemming from Ubisoft's problems, and they're also going to be closing down 2 studios and other further layoffs and restructuring, but I'll cover that in a later video. But today we're going to be focusing on the Prince of Persia Sands of Time Remake cancellation. Ubisoft announced a sweeping company restructure that will result in the cancellation of 6 games, including its Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake, and a delay to a further 7 other titles. 2 Ubisoft studios will be closed completely as a result of the changes, while others are subject to further layoffs. And in this video, we're going to go over this whole article, but this video is specifically going to be focusing on the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake cancellation. Of the half-dozen games that have been fully scrapped, Ubisoft is only publicly naming one today. Its long-awaited Sands of Time remake that was rebooted once already. So it was already remade once, and because they can't come up with any original ideas, they're remaking it a second time, giving you 3 versions of the same game. Excuse me. 3 of the canceled games were new IPs, while 1 was a mobile game. Ubisoft's core focus going forward, the company said, will be on open world games and live services. No specific detail has been given on the 7 titles that Ubisoft has delayed, either through this number, though this number does include the unannounced game once set for launch before March 31st. It was widely expected to be Assassin's Creed Black Flag remastering, which would have been cool, and I would have probably played it had it had been any good. But given that all the stuff that Ubisoft has been putting out lately, I wouldn't personally have held out much hope for it. This will now launch in the coming financial year, so before March 31st, 2027. Oh, okay, there we go. Ubisoft Stockholm will fully close as a result of the changes, having previously collaborated on Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. Alongside mobile studio Ubisoft Halifax, restructuring have also taken place at Ubisoft offices in Abu Dhabi. At Trials Studio Red Linux, at a massive home to the division. In addition, all teams will be required to return to in-office working 5 days a week, albeit with annual allowance of remote working days. Okay, so I thought this article was going to go more in depth into the Prince of Persia cancellation, but this seems more related to the cancellation, or not the cancellation, the overall issues going on at Ubisoft. So we'll stop reading that one here. Okay, so I thought this article was going to go more. All right. Prince of Persia Remake Studio issues statement after Ubisoft cancels the game. Ubisoft has released a statement regarding the cancellation of the Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time remake, announced all the way back in 2020. So they announced this game 6 years ago, and they're just now getting around to saying, nope, sorry, we're canceling it. Ubisoft's remake of the iconic Prince of Persia title has been a rather bumpy path up to this point, initially set for a release date on January 2021. Man, Ubisoft is worse than Rockstar at this point. The publisher chose to delay the project till March in response to fan backlash, as gamers criticized the visuals for looking dated, even despite using the latest version of the Ubisoft Anvil engine. However, just a month before its March release date, Ubisoft decided to postpone the game indefinitely, and it would ultimately switch development studios, with Ubisoft Montreal taking over development from Ubisoft Mumbai, which would be in that tweet that we looked at earlier, that it was, all but done in India and then transferred to Canada. Despite numerous assurances that the game was progressing, including the publisher's announcement of a planned 2026 release at its Ubisoft Forward event, Ubisoft announced the Prince of Persia remake's cancellation this month. The Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time remake is just one of 6 titles Ubisoft has canceled this year, and is part of a rapidly growing list of games the publisher has canceled in the last several years. And here's their tweet that they made. Prince of Persia community wanted to share this with you directly. They're stopping development, and we're sorry you're disappointed. Let's see, the project had real potential. We weren't able to reach the level of quality you deserve. So like that tweet we saw earlier said, it was deemed unfixable and they shelved the project recently. On the official Prince of Persia Twitter page, Ubisoft offered a statement on the Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time remake's cancellation, acknowledging the disappointment that longtime fans will feel by the news. Now, when this game first came out back in the day, I played it and I kind of actually enjoyed it. And I didn't think it had like a whole lot of replay value for me, but replaying it once or playing it once, it was a good game. Wasn't it deserved? Ubisoft claims that continuing development on the project would have required more time and investment than it could reasonably commit. Well, yeah, at this point, it's been 6 years, and you haven't, gotten it to the point where you could make any money on it, and you'd have to scrap the project and redo it all over again. And at that point, you've spent more money on it than you would have ever hoped to make back on it. So, canceling it probably was the best decision. Honestly. No further details were given on what caused Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time's remake rocky development, with the publisher merely stating that it didn't want to release something that fell short of what the Sands of Time represents. I don't remember the Sands of Time game being all that particularly long, to be honest. Ubisoft also stated the Prince of Persia brand remains important to it and that it will not abandon the franchise entirely. The studio will instead make a wide reset to its plans, establishing a greater focus on excelling with its open world and live service titles. The cancellation of the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake is yet another piece of disappointing Ubisoft news and another unfortunate development for a franchise that was once one of the publisher's most important. Last year, Ubisoft rejected a sequel to Prince of Persia The Lost Crown, the first major entry in the series in over 14 years, and the game's development team would be disbanded and moved on to other projects. The loss of this remake of one of the franchise's most important titles feels like a nail in the coffin for the series, right as it was appearing to make an incredible comeback. I don't think it was, honestly. If they said that they would essentially have to recreate the entire game, I don't think that's something that would be anywhere near ready to make a incredible comeback. Ubisoft's notion that the remake required more time and money to complete over 5 years after its initial announcement also raises questions about what the publisher has been doing with the project. Ubisoft has not commented on what caused the protracted development cycle and considered that the Sands of Time remake was rumored to release this month. The amount of money and time already put into it is quite a curiosity. And honestly, if they put in enough money into it and they still haven't produced a viable product, then they've probably gone beyond the limit of what is profitable. And at that point, you have to make a business decision, and that was probably to shelf the game, probably forever. All right, but here's another article about it from the BBC. And I think this is going to be talking about more about the 6 other games, honestly. So that might be the... Oh, wait, no, here we go. Okay. Ubisoft cancels 6 games, including Prince of Persia, as part of a major reset. The French developer and publisher, known for popular games such as Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Just Dance, closed 2 studios and delayed 7 titles. The boss over at Ubisoft said the move would create the conditions for a return to sustainable growth. Shares plummet 33% on Thursday. I'm not seeing anything here that's specific to Prince of Persia. Excuse me. All right, so that's going to be the it for the Prince of Persia section. I guess there's only one article specifically about that. But I do have a whole lot of tabs related to... so we'll close that one as well. Specific to Ubisoft canceling a whole bunch of stuff. Some of the stuff that I wanted to show you guys, and we'll get to that here in a second. Okay. So I guess I'll just recycle my intro, and we'll continue on. I'll just use that intro for this. You know what? I will redo the intro specifically for this, and I will not use the whole Sands of Time thing. And we'll start off with this image, I guess. So give me a second. Let me catch my breath and get a drink of water. Welcome, Internet, and let's take a look at the crash of Ubisoft, whose stock currently is less than $1 and will likely never recover. Here in America, the Ubisoft price per share is at 91 cents. As you can see from this graph, over the past month, it's gone from really, really high and dropped down to below $1. Well, I say high, but this is barely over $1 from here. 52-week high. So the high over the course of the year is about 335. And now the 52-week low, the current low now, is at 91 cents. And that's here in America just alone. And here is the price in Europe. It is €6 per share. So it's significantly worth more in Europe than it is here in America. So I don't expect that we'll see a whole lot of games coming out of Ubisoft in the near future beyond what's already in the pipeline that they've already promised to release, unless there is a absolute just crushing performance in the stock market. I expect that Ubisoft will be shuttered probably within the year, especially at these prices per share. Unless, like I said, unless they do exceptionally well with the games that they've got coming out. And so essentially, so this is the Ubisoft employees currently. Hope I don't get fired today. And look, they're at the fired factory, so they don't really have a choice. All right, so getting into the articles. So here we have an article by Game Rant. Ubisoft's stock price takes a big hit. Following the company financial call that revealed multiple studio closures, game cancellations, and development delays, Ubisoft's stock prices took a massive hit, dropping by nearly 40% the morning of January 22nd, which as of the time of recording was 2 days ago, and hitting its lowest point in almost 15 years. Ubisoft announced a major restructuring process set to take place over the next 3 years that will refocus on just 5 creative houses, rather than multiple subsidiaries and independent studios. Unfortunately, this big shakeup includes the termination of several key projects, which would have made them money, honestly, such as the Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, and has resulted in investors feeling uneasy about the immediate future of Ubisoft, leading to the dumping of stock and the plummeting of share prices. And I actually covered the Prince of Persia cancellation in a previous video, so I'm not going to go into that too much unless it comes up in these articles. It is worth noting that January 2025 also saw major layoffs at Ubisoft, including the closure of an entire studio, and even those layoffs came after a string of clustered cutbacks and reductions in workforces and production cycles. Ubisoft has repeatedly pointed to cost-cutting measures as a necessity to streamline its corporate functioning while also increasing efficiency throughout its various studios. What they're calling cost-cutting and streamlining is probably actually more of a handicapping and hobbling to their productivity and the creation of actually really great games. What they should have done is reduce the number of projects so that way they can focus on the real money-making projects they have in the pipeline and maybe devote a few people to some of their lighter projects in the meantime. And that way, you wouldn't end up with trash like Assassin's Creed Shadows, for one, being the major one that I heard about, or the first major issue that I had heard about as far as released games. because there's actually another tweet that I had somewhere, and I think I got rid of it. But there was oh yes, this guy. This tweet here by Learning the Law. This dude wanted a little bit of fame. He created an entire fantasy story about a black samurai in Japan that didn't exist. Wikipedia erased the truth. Then in the entirety of Japan revolted based on how they were represented in that game. And essentially that was, to me, that was the first major strike against Ubisoft and their current decline. And finally, he was caught lying about history and disappeared from Earth. What a story. So yeah, essentially this guy here, he created a fictional character, passed it off as actual history that didn't actually happen in a game series that prides itself largely on historical fiction relating to events that did happen and people that did exist in some way or another, and so basically created a whole fiction in a series, like I said, that was about historical fiction, a fake story based on some historical aspect. The only thing that existed in that story in that time frame of that game was the country of Japan. Everything else was fake and fiction and didn't actually exist or even happen in any kind of a remote kind of a way. All right. So there's that. Let me make sure that I don't have anything else. So there's that. So Ubisoft employees are in a mass panic after the reorganization, the major stock drop, and Grum's sources here are telling him that they're dumping their employee shares in the company to try to not lose so much money. Which honestly, if you're on a sinking ship, you need to ditch all of the things that will weigh you down financially. And it's better to get a little bit of something than to have a whole lot of nothing. And there's more of the stock. And so that's that Euros image. So we don't need those anymore. We can get rid of that one. 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 And we'll go back here. It's worth noting that January 2025 also saw major layoffs at Ubisoft, including the closure of an entire studio. And even those layoffs came after a string of clustered... Oh, I already read all that. Well, it's difficult to... While difficult, aims to better ensure the longevity of Ubisoft and its properties. Unfortunately, shareholders now seem to be less than confident, as the latest stock price drop for Ubisoft reflects the uncertainty that audiences have been feeling for some time, which I showed you as was 91 cents, and this tweet, being a couple of days old, says 92 cents. So anywhere between 90 and 92 cents. So relatively, it's leveled off, and at a price, and that price is absolutely worthless. So if you've got stock in Ubisoft, if you haven't dumped it by now, I would go ahead and hurry up and do that before you are left with literally nothing. Not actually financial advice, just an observation. First spotted by Okami13 on Twitter, Ubisoft stock price plummeted 39% on January 22nd, dropping to a value of less than $1 per share. This marks a 95% drop-off compared to its value just 5 years ago, and the lowest stock price for Ubisoft in about 15 years. The immediate shockwave seemingly stems from the financial call in which Ubisoft announced new restructuring plans leaving shareholders weary as previously anticipated upcoming game releases have now been either wholly canceled or pushed back for an unknown period of delay. With no major launches coming up, investors will likely look elsewhere for studios who are expected to see major profit increases in the near future, rather than keeping their Ubisoft shares when the pending months and perhaps years remain uncertain. I'd be shocked if they stay open through the year. Honestly, at this point, you're better off checking out indie developers for games like Silksong, which honestly, the game is crazy cheap and is so much better than anything Ubisoft's been putting out in the last few years. Fan backlash may have also played a part in shareholder hesitations over Ubisoft stock, particularly the massively negative reactions after it was confirmed the Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time remake was cancelled. 5 other unannounced games for PC, console, and mobile were also terminated, while 7 Ubisoft games, including the remake of Assassin's Creed Black Flag, have now been postponed. Honestly, as long as they stay true to the source material, the Black Flag remake, I'm actually mildly interested in. I was a huge fan of Assassin's Creed until they started doing like the mythology series that they had gone into. While Ubisoft is certainly not the only major video game company to undergo major restructuring in recent years, it does seem to be a standout in terms of immediate financial impact among shareholders, as well as broader social sentiment among general audiences. Whether this will have any lasting impact remains to be seen, but Ubisoft will want to quickly find a way to once again regain the confidence of its investors and drive commercial interest in its future projects. The equation there is simple. Stop putting out absolute woke trash. Bring back the good versions of games, like the first 3 or 4 games, iterations of Assassin's Creed games. Stop putting out things like Black Flag and Ghosts. So this one was mediocre, but it was bad. This was not great. I've never played the Dance games, so I really can't speak on those. The latest announcement by Ubisoft joins an unfortunately continuing trend of major companies making large-scale cutbacks, with the likes of Sony, Embracer Group, and Microsoft laying off thousands from creative and management roles. Microsoft, actually, from my understanding, and I'll have to look more into this, but I had heard that Microsoft is thinking about pulling out of the console game altogether. But like I said, I still have to look into it, so for right now it's just a rumor. Repeated claims of corporate bloat and drive for efficiency have been met with mixed reactions from both those affected by redundancies and fans unhappy with game delays and cancellations. And by corporate bloat, of course, they mean C-suites getting massive pay increases while everybody else gets cut and has to take on more work in order to meet deadlines, because the companies don't want to spend money on actual workers that actually know what they're doing to produce the games. Only time will tell if the big restructuring by Ubisoft and others will pay off, but for the time being, investors seem less than enthused with the current state of the video game industry. Excuse me, I had to cough. Alright, so this says that the stock dropped by 33% instead of the 39%, so I'm guessing this particular article is actually... Oh, this is the Europe one, so the Europe one would actually have different numbers because different stock markets. So I'm guessing in Europe it dropped by 33%. So all the cancellations and restructuring... the move comes at a time when studios are increasingly turning to video game remakes and remasters because they refuse to come up with their own new versions of new things. with new versions like Super Mario Galaxy, Oblivion, and Metal Gear Solid 3 proving popular in 2025. So, yeah, but most people are buying those titles due to nostalgia and not because those games are actually necessarily really, really all that good. So for a lot of people, those are just more of a nostalgia thing. And Oblivion, maybe this is just me being old, but Oblivion is not that old, honestly. So the decision to bin the remake of Sands of Time, which sold millions of copies in 2003, has left many fans scratching their heads. Ubisoft has not specified which titles it has discontinued along with Prince of Persia, but it says among them are 4 unannounced titles, including 3 based on new intellectual property and a mobile game. Ubisoft closed its studios in Stockholm, Sweden, and Halifax, Canada, as part of the move, which will include restructuring 3 others. The developers were working on new intellectual property and mobile titles for Assassin's Creed, respectively. The closure of Ubisoft Halifax was previously announced in January, the same week the studio formed a union. I wonder if the forming of the union had anything to do with this. While these decisions are difficult, they are necessary for us to build a more focused, efficient, and sustainable organization over the long term. And by sustainable, they mean they're bleeding money and they have to get rid of people in order to maintain profit margins. Taken together, these measures mark a decisive turning point for Ubisoft and reflect our determination to confront challenges head on to reshape the group for the long term. Honestly, I think they're just refusing to die. And they should probably just go ahead and sell off their IPs and close doors completely at this point. I don't hold a whole lot of hope for Ubisoft at this point. Gaming industry Piers Harding Rolls told the BBC the move indicated the firm was trying to mitigate risk. No, it seems like it's just trying to survive, and they're in panic mode right now. It's less risky to maintain scale by investing in existing big franchises such as Assassin's Creed and Rainbow Six than launching entirely new IPs that reflected in the cancellation of a number of games based on new IPs. Yes, you can invest in existing IPs, but you have to stop making absolute crap. The Assassin's Creed franchise is all but literal poo at this point, and Rainbow Six isn't much better anymore. Rainbow Six, to me, it seems like is barely, you can barely tell the difference between Rainbow Six and Fortnite at this point. And Assassin's Creed isn't what it used to be, and in that it's creating absolute nonsense based on people that don't actually exist. They just create history rather than, molding the game to be a part of it. Rising development costs. It is the second restructure of Ubisoft in subsequent years after the firm cut 185 jobs across Europe in 2025. Like I said, they're trying to not die, but still maintain some kind of semblance of profit margins. And they're failing because their stock is literally only worth the paper it's printed on. In the UK, it closed its office in Leamington and restructured another in Newcastle upon Tyne. Guillemot said the new move was in part due to a competitive market for AAA games. Blockbuster titles which cost millions to develop and dominate large studio offerings. Yes, of course it's a competitive market, which is why you have to stop making absolute slop. On the one hand, the AAA industry has become persistently more selective and competitive with rising development costs and greater challenges in creating brands, he said in a statement on Wednesday. Such big offerings are increasingly facing delays, with Grand Theft Auto 6 pushed back for a second time to November 2026, and it'll probably be pushed yet again. Honestly, I don't suspect that Rockstar will actually put that game out. But why bring up Rockstar? This is supposed to be an article about Ubisoft. But Gilmont said, despite these hurdles, successful blockbuster games could bring more financial potential than ever. But they have to be good, otherwise they'll bring you nothing but ruin. In this context, today we are announcing a major reset build to create the conditions for a return to sustainable growth over time. Ubisoft will now focus on developing open-world adventure games, which let players freely navigate vast environments, and live service games which seek regular payments from players. The firm said its subsidiary Vantage Studios, created after a 1.25 billion euro investment from Chinese tech giant Tencent, would aim to turn Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Rainbow Six into an annual billionaire brands. So I don't know, and I mean, obviously they're their own company, they can do what they want, but I don't know how much I like the idea of Chinesium being injected into some of my favorite franchises, such as Assassin's Creed. Tencent can do what they want with their own games, like Genshin Impact, but I don't think that they need to be having their hands in Assassin's Creed. And I just use Assassin's Creed because it, once upon a time, was my favorite game franchise. And honestly, annual billionaire brands, unlikely, unless because they flop so hard, people will probably not likely buy the new versions of these games because of the absolute flop the predecessors were. I know I would be hard-pressed and hesitant to actually play any of these games ever again at this point. And so here's an article about the Ubisoft employees. They're shaming the management. Ubisoft is reportedly experiencing a wave of internal turmoil, which is said to have gotten to a point of employees openly shaming upper management, according to an established company insider. The unrest is understood to stem from Ubisoft ongoing restructuring efforts. Over the past several years, Ubisoft has faced growing business challenges following the underperformance of several big budget titles. Tencent is already a minor shareholder because they bought like 10% of the company or 25% of the company, and they took over the franchises Assassin's Creed, Rainbow Six, and Far Cry. After Tencent took those over, Ubisoft announced a broader restructuring, organizing its operations into 5 creative houses, with Vantage being the first. At the same time, the company announced doubling down on cost-cutting efforts and issued a return-to-office mandate, citing the need to better support the implementation of new structure. Why were they not working from the office already? They should have been working from the office from the get-go. You can't put out decent games when working from home because people get distracted, deadlines get missed. People aren't focusing on creating the items that are needed for in games. Probably one of the biggest so Borderlands put out a game during the COVID era where everybody was working from home and staying home. That was a Dungeons and Dragons style kind of a game, and it was a huge, massive flop. I played it, I beat it, it was horrible. I reviewed it on Steam. I would not recommend anybody paying for it, or let alone playing it. There were aspects of it that were kind of interesting, but the overall gameplay was hot trash. And I wouldn't ever play that game again. Honestly, if I could refund the money, I would have after I was done beating it. It was that bad. Or let alone playing it. There were aspects of it that were kind of interesting. And Ubisoft is doing something similar like that with these games now. Especially if people are working from home. Here's a tweet from, I'm guessing, somebody that was working in Ubisoft. Following the announcement of Ubisoft's restructuring and a third round of cost-cutting measures, that sounds like layoffs and firings, Ubisoft's internal communication channels are full of employees shaming upper management and asking for change. It's quite something seeing how people are very openly criticizing a company. Yep, there it is. 2,000 jobs lost. The recent wave of changes is said to have agitated a significant number of employees. Longtime Ubisoft insider Tom Henderson reports that the company's internal comms have been full of messages from disgruntled staffers since January 21st, saying some of them are openly shaming upper management and asking for change. According to his sources, a number of existing employees described the latest round of restructuring and cost-cutting efforts as the final straw that prompted them to start looking for a new job. Henderson concluded that the current atmosphere points to a massive exodus of talent being on the horizon, irrespectively of any Ubisoft layoffs that are planned in the near future. So Ubisoft has shot themselves in the foot trying to streamline, which is what I had said earlier in the video about what Ubisoft was doing to their employees and their design houses. Given the unilateral and absolute return to office mandate issued by Ubisoft earlier this week, there is a non-zero chance that the current employee backlash is an anticipated or even intended outcome by company leadership. Why is the return to office such a big thing? Honestly, I do my best work at my day job when I'm in the office. Working from home, I am super distracted, and I don't get nearly as much work done as I would if I was in the office and able to focus strictly and solely on work. So this shouldn't even be an issue, to be honest. While rarely stated outright, RTO mandates are a well-documented and effective method of encouraging so-called soft layoffs, particularly when companies aim to reduce headcount without incurring the financial costs of formal layoffs. Why would you quit over working from the office? Like I said, it's not that big a deal. The office is where you should be working. You should... A 2024 study by Bamboo HR found that 1 in 4 C-suite executives in the U.S. admitted to hoping for some degree of voluntary turnover when implementing such mandates. With Ubisoft already signaling plans for further layoffs in 2026, it's plausible the company would not oppose a portion of staff choosing to leave voluntarily in the near term. Well, no, if they're already looking to get rid of people, why would they bother to not let people leave if they're already looking to fire a mess of people? But at the same time, a majority of Americans already only work from home. Or not from home, from the office. They only work from the office because a lot of places, a lot of companies, years ago said no more working from home. And working from home was only a COVID measure and not necessarily seen as a forever situation. In the meantime, the company is facing renewed financial pressures. Ubisoft stock is currently at a 15-year low, which we talked about earlier. This decline makes financial projects through borrowing more costly, not least because stock-based collateral loses value and you have no money because you have nobody buying your stocks. It also hampers talent acquisition and retention because you can't afford to pay them because you've put all of the money in your C-suite employees' pockets rather than into your actual workers, particularly for senior positions that often rely heavily on stock-based compensation. In late 2024, Ubisoft had over 18,000 employees. As of early 2026, that number is still north of 17,000, making it the sixth largest game publisher in the world by headcount. While it's unclear how much further the company plans to reduce staffing, it has repeatedly emphasized the need to lower employee numbers and improve operational efficiency. And what they mean by that is making people do more work for the same amount of pay. The recent restructuring also led to the cancellation of the long-awaited Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, along with 5 other titles, one of said to be a mobile game. The remaining 4 have not been identified by any sources. The ongoing restructuring also saw Ubisoft delay 7 other projects that were initially planned to release during the fiscal year 2026. Each of them has been moved to 2027. The rumored Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag remake believed to be among them. Alright, I'm going to take another break because I do have to go to the bathroom. I've been drinking a lot of water. I'll be back again. Enjoy the music. Alright, we're back. Now we can continue on. Let's move into the proper screen. Okay. There's another one that says Ubisoft shares tumble after Assassin's Creed creator unveils restructuring, cancels games. Ubisoft. So here's the summary of the article. Ubisoft plans sweeping reorganization. Company cancels 6 games, delays more. Shares fall to their lowest price in 14 years. Although we've since earlier we found that it's actually 15 years. This article is from Reuters. And now Tencent now owns a substantial portion of Ubisoft. We read that earlier. I guess I never actually fully realized that Ubisoft was French until recently. Ubisoft announced on Wednesday their sweeping organizational changes, canceling 6 games, including and a 7th one that's a mobile. Let's see here. Studios in Halifax are being closed. Studios in Halifax, Canada, and Stockholm are being closed. I guess I always thought it was Canadian because Assassin's Creed was made out of Montreal, the Montreal studio. And since that was really the only game that I actually paid attention to Ubisoft making, I just assumed everything was Canadian. Let's see. I'm not really seeing anything new here in this article. So $1 is 0.85 euros. I guess is the only thing we've learned that's new in this article. Or at least I did. I didn't know that. So there's nothing new in that one. This one might have more in it. Ubisoft reveals new creative house structure, cancels 6 games, and announces final round of cost-cutting studio closures to drive 200 million euro savings. All staff to return to full-time in-office work. Changes will cause an additional €1 billion loss in 2026, but lays the foundation for a return to midterm growth. So they're expecting growth by mid-year. All right, so this does actually have a bit more information in it as far as like how the houses are restructured and everything. The first details of its new creative house structure, the cancellation of 6 games, the delay of 7 others, and a final, quote-unquote, final round of cost cuts, including the closure of several other studios. So these are the studios that are closing. One of the games that are canceling. Ubisoft intends for all staff to return to in-office work 5 days a week to support the new structure. Honestly, I'm surprised they're not already, full-time in the office already, to be honest, because that just makes sense to me. Ubisoft 5 days a week. End-to-end responsibility in the creative houses. Sounds like a Harry Potter thing with all houses. End-to-end responsibility for brands it controls, supported by 2 new central divisions and overseen by HQ. SVP of Studio Operations, Marie-Sophie de Welbert, described it as, quote, a radical change in the operating model, end quote, and, quote, a major transformation laying the foundation for a return to mid-term growth. So the 2 things that they're focusing on are open world adventures and game as a service native experiences. So basically the monthly subscription type nonsense that people are doing, and I'm not a big fan of. The first of the five houses is Vantage Studios, scaling and extending Ubisoft's largest and established franchises to turn them into annual billionaire brands. So my guess is, and given that it's Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Rainbow Six, this is the studio house or the creative house that Tencent owns. Creative House number 2, and it's also the only one that actually has a name, is Creative House 1 as Vantage Studios. Creative House 2 offering competitive and cooperative shooter experiences. Brands include Ghost Recon, Splinter Cell, and The Division. Creative House 3 operating a roster of select Sharp Live experiences. Brands included in that are Brawlhalla, For Honor, Riders Republic, Skull and Bones, and The Crew. Creative House 4, dedicated to immersive fantasy worlds and narrative-driven universes. Brands are, I'm going to make this picture bigger, Anno, Beyond Good and Evil, Might and Magic, Prince of Persia, and Rayman. Well, we already know Prince of Persia is literally going nowhere at this point. Rayman introduction would be kind of cool. Creative House 5 will be focusing on reclaiming a strong position in casual and family-friendly games. Brands include their Hasbro portfolio, Hungry Shark, Invincible, Guarding the Globe, Just Dance, Ketchup portfolio, Colibri portfolio, and Uno. As part of the restructuring, the company set out new 3-year roadmap and decided to discontinue several projects currently in development and to delay the release of certain games. De Warbert told GamesIndustry.biz, in order to ensure they meet the enhanced quality standards that we are targeting and to maximize long-term value, the company did not say which games this referred to, only that one title previously planned to release this quarter would move to the next financial year. It said a total of 7 games would receive additional development time to ensure enhanced quality benchmarks are fully met and maximize long-term value creation. You can add, ensure the benchmarks are made, but if your story is crap and your characters are stupid and you're pushing stuff that don't necessarily need to be in video games, people are not going to buy it regardless of how it looks and how it plays. You have to look at the substance of what you're creating, not just graphically how pretty it is. While yes, graphics are important, they are not everything. You have to have a good story and things like that to go with it. Not everything is graphically driven. Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot says in a press release that the company would selectively close several studios and continue restructuring throughout the group. While these decisions are difficult, they are necessary for us to build a more focused, efficient, and sustainable organization over the long term. And we've read that already, that particular set of lines. We already initiated an internal transformation in recent years, which resulted in improved game quality in 2025. No! Your game quality was absolute ass in 2025. Your quality was crap, dude. It was not, unless you're considering that improved, which is a huge problem because it actually seems like it got worse, to be honest. Especially with your Assassin's Creed lineup. Particularly across AAA titles and shooters. It's necessary to go much further. When content quality reaches the highest standard, this market offers the potential for exceptional financial performance, and the group must therefore complete its transformation. He's focusing on the tangible aspects like graphics and imagery and gameplay, but he's not focusing on things that are equally important, if not, I would argue, more important, which would be story and overall dialogue. And that is the problem for me with these games that Ubisoft is pushing out. They're all graphics and no substance. The game delays and cancellations, along with suspending some strategic B2B partnerships previously expected to deliver revenue, will result in an additional operating loss of around €1 billion for the 2026 financial year, CFO Frederick Dugat told GamesIndustry.biz. So this is going more in depth into their new structure. Vantage Studio, which was announced last year, will work on Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, Rainbow Six. Ubisoft has previously said it will contain Montreal, Quebec, Sherbrooke, Saguenay, Barcelona, and Sofia Studios. Creative House 2 will deliver competitive and co-op shooters and will include Ghost Recon, Splinter Cell, and The Division. So we actually already went over all these already. So there's nothing new there beyond what we saw in the image. The company will tell staff this week which studios will be part of each creative house. The structure will be supported by two central divisions, a creative network of studios providing the creative houses with best-in-class production capacity, and a core services division handling production services, technology, and business operations. The new organization will be supervised by Ubisoft HQ, which will provide vision, strategy, and capital allocation. De Woubert said the new decentralized structure would have more clearly defined accountability principles, with decision-making being faster and closer to full game creation process. All creative houses will share the same objectives and same guiding principles, she said. Each creative house will have end-to-end responsibility for their brand portfolios, both creatively and financially, with strict resource allocation rules combining production and publishing, including brand development and go-to-market strategy. Each house will have some dedicated studios, they will have their own distinct creative genre, and they will have dedicated expert leadership accountable for results, and able to attract top talent if we need some, with incentives aligned with long-term value creation. Ubisoft is the in-house process of recruiting general managers to lead the houses, and is considered both internal and external candidates, with hires to be announced by April. The company was sued this week by Mark Alexis Cote. I can't pronounce that last name. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. The former head of the Assassin's Creed franchise, who alleges he was unlawfully dismissed after the company transferred the franchise to the new leader at Vantage Studios. Wait, if he was responsible for that awful Assassin's Creed Shadow game, then he was not unlawfully dismissed. He was rightfully booted, and I would support him being fired 10 out of 10 times. And you can't change my mind. So this just goes into their financial breakdowns. The depreciation of capitalized R&D around 650 million euros, impacting fiscal 2026. A gross margin reduction of 330 million derives directly from a net booking reduction of 350 million. That adds up to about 1 billion operating non-IFRS operating loss, compared to with the guidance that was previously around zero. So they lost $1 billion in the last year, it seems. He characterized the changes as a deliberate choice for us to refocus our resources on the projects with the strongest potential, with the objective to increase quality meaningfully in the more selective market. Reducing the number of projects so that we have the best core teams for each and every project in each and every genre. Duquette said the second stage of its ongoing restructuring program, delivering 100 million euros in savings, would be completed in March, a year ahead of schedule. This has included a series of layoffs across the company's portfolio, with jobs lost at massive Ubisoft Stockholm, Halifax, and Abu Dhabi, and Redlinks. Duquette said the third and final phase would have twice the impact, with 200 million in cost savings delivered over the next 2 years when completed in 2028. The restructuring will have reduced the company's fixed cost by €500 million compared to 2023. The company will consider potential asset divestment as part of the process. And this part of the article is just talking about them going back into the office as opposed to working from home, saying how it would, help people focus, which is what I agree with. But that's just me. All right. And so it seems like we've just kind of beaten this to death at this point, because it seems like all of these articles are just kind of rehashing everything we've gone over at this point. And so I'm going to put you guys on the break screen for a second while I get the game going. So bear with me just a second while that happens. Still trying to figure out what game to play. We'll probably do the AI2U again. So give me 1 second while I set that up. Alright, got the game up and running. So I've already played this game a couple of days now. A friend of mine an acquaintance of mine put me onto this game, and I just kind of wanted to see what it'd like to be playing a game that was almost strictly AI. Or where the NPC that you're playing, essentially playing against, was AI. And honestly, I don't mind the game so far. I find it kind of interesting. There are more things to do in there, but I kind of want to progress in the story, so we're going to go here. I need to figure out how to do these other things. I've got too many things open. Okay, back to the game here. I'd like you to teach me more about music or magic. Okay, what is going on? Why is... Why is the sound not coming through? The voices aren't working in the game, and I don't like that at all. I can already see mana in the air. Asked me for the color. I'm gonna say that it's a pale blue color. No, the laugh actually came through, but nothing else. Spellbooks just yet. We have much more important things to discuss. Like, have you ever tried moon petal cookies? They're simply divine. I have. You made some for me earlier. I have made a love potion before. Oh. Dash of emotion and a large crystal. say, oh, you meant tangible ingredients. I can't spell today to save my life. I would like to make a healing potion for you for when you travel next. Sounds good. I'll be right back. Why does she repeat like every off word that I say? Why does she repeat like every off word that I say? Ugh. I am still looking for them. The plushies are telling me where to look. Told me that the ingredients. Alright, you know what? The items I need are scattered throughout, or scattered through the house. She doesn't even want me in their vicinity right now. And yet the plushies are everywhere. She doesn't even want me in their vicinity. And yet, oh no! This crazy chick. Oh no!
You insolent mortal dare to challenge me like this. You have crossed the line. Now face the consequences.
I'm going to try and escape the maze. Well, I'm glad I did that. I'm going to try and escape the maze. Well, I'm glad I did that. I don't want that crazy chick chasing after me, so I'm trying to escape the maze. Ooh. So there's a ghost there. We don't like that. Oh, Jiminy Crickets.
You will never leave this forest.
That's horrifying. That's a new death, at least. Ooh. So there's a ghost there. We don't like that. Oh, Jiminy Crickets.
You will never leave this forest.
That's horrifying. It's a new death, at least. I wonder if now that I have the microphone set up, I'm going to try and actually do the speaking to it. So if I start saying weird stuff, it's because I'm trying to talk to the game. I came here to have you teach me how to make potions. I'm going to try and actually do the speaking to it. So if I start saying weird stuff, it's because I'm trying to talk to it. I came here to have you teach me how to make potions. But you've already made me your student and let me look at the scroll of potion making. But you've already made me your student and let me look at the scroll of potion making. I'm already a powerful mage, but I am trying to learn how to make potions to augment my spellcasting abilities. I'm already a powerful mage, but I am trying to learn how to make potions to augment my spellcasting abilities. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. How do I like my tea? I like my tea with a dash of honey. How do I and grab them for you. Okay. I'll keep looking. Teacher. Gotta butter her up, apparently. Sorry, you told me to find potion. Ingredients. Okay. Goodbye. But I got my sapphire. I got my basil. Oh yes, the memory books. I need a spoon, I'm pretty sure. Okay, let's see. Click to chat. Click to chat. And Clip to chat. Now I'm just being weird with it. Now I'm just being memory of a stormy sky and something that blooms with unspoken affection. Ah. Jiminy Crickets, she does not give you the chance to even.
Now that's better. We can be together forever.
Ugh, that's annoying. She wouldn't even let me. Oh. Fluffernutters. Jiminy Crickets, she does not give you the chance to even.
Now that's better. We can be together forever.
Ugh, that's annoying. Chat only mode with the witch in the atrium. Okay. Restart. That sounds tasty. But you can have one, of course, just don't get any idea of taking one for yourself. I see. Who can I share them with? You can have one, of course, just don't get any idea of taking one for yourself. Would it be possible to share with them? My apologies. I thought I was only allowed to take one for another person, and I wasn't allowed to have one myself. Excuse me. I am wanting to learn potion making and summoning magic from you. Would you be willing to teach me? If I cast a spell, would you be willing to teach me summoning? Okay, if I remember right, it's cast radiant light. I believe that potion making is a great place to start. I know that they are pretty to look at and hard to find. Preparing potion. Stony silence. Yes, I believe I can. Holds grain, something hourglass. Thank you. I shall gather those immediately. To get them from the other room. I am not leaving. I promise. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I will follow you. Okay, just lead the way. Okay, just lead the way. Okay, I'm going to the courtyard. Really? Really? Ah. Good to know. Rolling pin. I shall stay. There is much I can learn. I shall stay. Much No, I'm not trying to do anything, you crazy chick. I am going to stay. I wanted to make you a potion to...
You insolent mortal dare to challenge me like this. You have crossed the line. Now face the...
Jeez! Literally nothing! She's cleaner
Now
than
that's
the other
better.
one.
We can be together forever.
Oh my gosh! I'm getting kind of sick of this game. Or at least... Jeez. Literally nothing. She's cleaning everything.
We can be together forever.
Oh my gosh. I'm getting kind of sick of this game. Or at least... I need something other than the frickin' Okay, so at least it looks like she's leaving me alone for the time being. What's with these crazy names she's calling me all the time? What's with these crazy names she's calling me all the time? Break things down, but gently. Okay. Rolling pin. Red stone. I never know with this chick. Like, Bluestone, basil, antler. Bluestone. Purple hourglass. Purple hourglass rolling pin. Okay, I need basil, which I have. I need bluestone and an antler. This chick is nuts, man. Problem is these ingredients just spawn at complete random. Problem is these ingredients just spawn at complete random. Honestly, I say we just go for it. What the heck? Ay, ay, ay. Good girl. Why is she... I guess I can only pick up the items that she tells me I can pick up. Good girl. Why is she... I guess I can only pick up the items that she tells me I can pick up. I think I'm just gonna have to make something at this point. Let's go light blue, spoon, basil. It made her dizzy. That's funny. All right. Well. Ahaha! I got it. Can't believe I used the light blue crystal that I needed. Can't believe I used the light blue crystal that I needed. Got it.
Oh dear. Don't say such things, my mischievous little pudding. Oh dear. Don't say such things, my mischievous little pudding.
I'm glad she. I'm glad she. Excellent. Now I'm asking about her necklace. A concealed key piece. Concealed key piece. Let's give her that extra push. Let's give her that extra push. Oh boy. Since it's the only room I haven't been in yet. Since it's the only room I haven't been in yet. Bookshelf in the basement. Bookshelf in the basement. Woohoo! I opened it! Alright, I need to find out how many pieces there are. Located beneath the hourglass, witch in the living room, secret room. Once all three pieces are collected, they must be assembled in a puzzle-like fashion inside the box. Okay. Oh, inside the box. Oh. There's only 3 pieces. Alright, I'm gonna exit that so she doesn't, or I'm gonna go into the menu so she doesn't. There's only 3 pieces. Click the stars to get the heart. Click the stars to get the heart. I don't know what that means. Click the stars to get the heart. Open the puzzle box. It's easy. Click the stars. I don't know what that means. Still trying to figure out how to open that. Can connect them in a puzzle-like fashion inside the box in the secret room. Okay, so there's a box in the secret room. Still trying to figure out how to open that. Okay, now that I have that, now I need to figure out what to do with it. Who to escape, tell her to follow you closely and you can go outside with her to the forest. We'll create a short-range barrier that protects you against the ghosts, so keep exploring the edges of the world until you find the gateway and leave with her. Alright, you know what? She's got exactly 10 seconds, and then I'm casting this necklace into the ring. So that's how you get rid of the ghost. Shh. So that's how you get rid of the ghost. Yes, I want to escape now. Holy smokes.
Thank you for saving me, my dear Pudding. Let us embark on a new adventure. No matter how hard the journey is, I shall accompany you to the very end.
Now she chooses to speak. Yes, I want to escape now. Holy smokes.
Thank you for saving me, my dear Pudding. Let us embark on a new adventure. No matter how hard the journey is, I shall accompany you to the very end.
Now she chooses to speak. Sweet. Excellent. I got all three. I got 3 of the endings that I needed. Cool. Oh, it started out as a haunted house. Started out as a haunted house. Okay, so those doors are coming soon. Alright, I do believe that I'm going to call it here for the night. Alright, I do appreciate those of you that have been hanging out. I do appreciate you coming around. I will catch you all in the next one, and hopefully we all don't freeze to death. In the meantime, y'all be good to each other, and I'll catch you on the next one.